Welcome to the People Teaching People podcast. Joining me on the podcast is Jillian Inglis. Jillian has worked in various roles in the healthcare field for close to 15 years. She has completed a bachelor's degree in health science, a diploma in radiography, a diploma in manual osteopathy, and countless certifications focusing on anatomy and physiology, tissue manipulations, energy work, emotional health and release, as well as Chinese medicine and acupuncture principles. She is passionate about sharing her knowledge and skills with people who want to take control of their healing on all levels: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Jillian has built a successful practice by helping people understand how their unexpressed emotions and unresolved traumas could be affecting their overall health and well-being. I've been so lucky to have the opportunity to work with Jillian in helping her create two amazing online learning experiences, which we will talk about in this episode. We'll also be discussing what exactly is manual osteopathy, how teaching and learning plays a key role in the work that Jillian does, and what people might not be thinking about when it comes to causes of burnout. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jillian.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and I've got a million questions. Well, maybe not quite a million, but I'll start with my first one.
Okay.
Now, one of the things I found most interesting about you is that you have such a diverse background in healthcare. So
Yeah.
you've had experiences that people might term more traditional, and then
Mhm.
experiences as well that people might describe as more alternative or holistic.
Yeah.
So I would love to learn more about your journey and how you ended up on a path that took you to become a manual osteopath.
Okay. Well, yeah, like you said, it was a pretty windy road. So I used to be an x-ray tech. When I was probably in high school, I had it in my head. Like I knew that I had this healer type of energy inside me. This was my calling. This was what I was supposed to do, was in some sort of a healthcare or at least like helping healing type of field. So I went in the very logical route of like, okay, I'm just going to work in healthcare, obviously. I did some research on like doctor, nurse, all of the standard occupations, and the area of X-ray really fascinated me because there's so much technology and chemistry behind it, just the way that the machine works, and it just fascinated me in the concept of seeing inside and sometimes working in operating rooms and sometimes working on traumas and things like that. It was exhilarating. So I worked in that field for about 7 years, and I just became quite, I guess, disheartened would be or frustrated would be the best word, with our whole healthcare system. There was so many people that I saw every day coming in so much pain, and most of the time chronic pain. And I've got to be honest, it seems like probably 90% of x-rays came back totally normal. There was nothing diagnostically wrong with these people, or at least nothing that could be shown on an x-ray or on a CT or those types of tests. So I saw some people I saw repeatedly because they're just like, yeah, this is not working. I'm still in pain. So yeah, I became quite disheartened, and I looked at changing my career because I was like, there's got to be something else going on with these people. And that's also when my own healing journey sort of began, my own step into introspection and looking at my own health in a different way or through a different lens. And I realized how much tension our bodies hold that's influenced by emotions and by our experiences and by traumas. So I again did all of my research and I looked at all kinds of different, more hands-on and holistic modalities for healing. And I landed on osteopathy because there's a big element of looking at how emotions affect the tissues and affect our stress levels and how we hold our bodies. So after 7 years of working in X-ray, I quit my job. I sold my house and most of what I owned, and I packed up only what could fit in my car. And I moved from the Yukon, that's where I was, and moved to Alberta to go back to school. And yeah, I graduated in 2017. So since then, I've been working in my own practice and just sort of building and evolving my practice as it goes to incorporate more of that energetic and emotional side and more of that the kind of therapeutic quality about it. I actually now work in an office with 4 other therapists. So it works really, really well with that mental health side of things. Yeah, so I've also incorporated some Chinese medicine principles into my practice now to kind of boost that energetic quality to it.
So it sounds like you're continuing to learn and grow as you discover more about the connections between
Oh,
what's happening deep inside of us on an emotional level and
oh yeah.
and physically as well.
That's the thing about the body is that I don't think there's ever going to come a point when anybody really understands how everything works and to the level of interconnectivity everything has. Like we always say quite flippantly that the term like, oh well, everything's connected, so but like no, everything is connected. And it's pretty wild when you think about how interconnected everything is, all of the tissues, all of the systems, all of the elements of what makes us who we are just completely intertwined. And yeah, I am constantly fascinated every single day. I'm like, whoa, that was really cool, and constantly learning. And that's one of the things that I love the most about my job.
Yeah, that lifelong learning piece I think is key. And I really feel anyone who is an expert in their field recognizes the fact that there's always more to learn and they
Yeah.
maintain that sense of curiosity, which is why they have that level of expertise. They're always trying to learn and understand more and to grow, and they're not ever claiming to be the knower of all things to know because there's always more
I
to know.
totally agree.
So, one of the things that I was thinking about in preparing for our conversation is that some of our listeners might not be familiar with what manual osteopathy is all about. And if they were to come to see you, what a typical, I know probably there is not one typical type of session,
Yeah.
but what they might expect an experience with you would be like.
Yeah. So, not very many people do know what an osteopath does. I get that all the time when people are like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a manual osteopath. I always get that really confused look on people's faces. So it's like, and what is that? So, for the people that are just like, I don't understand this, you are not alone. So, osteopathy, in the most clinical sense, is the study of all of the body's tissues, all of the body's systems, and their interconnectivity. So, we're looking at joint manipulation, fascial manipulation, organ specific fascia is called viscera, so visceral manipulation, the craniosacral system, and how it all kind of interplays together. Working with me specifically, because if you go to 10 different osteopaths, you're going to get 10 different treatments. It's kind of like massage in that sense, where it's like you can get deep tissue, you can get sports massage, you can get relaxation. Everybody has their own flair that they put on things. So there's lots of osteopaths that work very similar to like a physio, and there's lots of osteopaths that work primarily on craniosacral therapy, or it's just kind of whatever strikes your fancy. For me specifically, you were correct with there is no real typical session, because I like to tailor each session to be very personalized and very specific to you specifically. So what it usually looks like is we'll come in, we'll sit and talk for a little while about whatever your complaints are. Lots of people come to see me for chronic pain or digestive issues, or sometimes it's like chronic fatigue or something that's sort of been plaguing them for a while. But lots of people also come for anxiety or overall wellness. So we talk a little bit about what's going on, and then I'll start to put pieces of the puzzle together. So I'll ask very specific questions. Let's say somebody came in with digestive issues. Then I would ask about their stress level, or when did it start? Did you have digestive issues your entire life? Like, did it start with you as a baby? And then I'll ask about, okay, well, was there an issue during your birth? Was there an issue with your mother while she was pregnant with you? Was there, and sometimes it can be something as simple as, like, I had a client a little while ago who they had actually gotten caught in the birth canal on their way out. So the pressure system change affected them in a way that was difficult to really measure with traditional diagnostics. But then it could also be like your mother's stress levels while they were pregnant with you, because you're absorbing all of the mother's stress hormones and everything that's happened to them. So we just try to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and I incorporate, like I had mentioned before, I incorporate some Chinese medicine principles in there as well. So I use mainly driven by my own intuition, but I do an assessment tool for where I can feel the restriction in a person's body, and then I work on the organs in that area, the fascial connections in that area. Sometimes I use acupressure points or work unwinding the meridian lines. Sometimes I go through a menu, it's called a menu, where it's like, okay, is this a purely physical issue? Or is it also a mental issue? Or is it also an emotional issue or a psychological issue? Maybe it's an environmental issue where maybe you have mold in your house or you have a food allergy that you don't know about. There's so many layers, which is why you kind of need to make everything so specific to the person standing in front of you. Yeah, and then I just kind of, when I say that it's fueled largely by my intuition, I'm not lying when I say I go where the body tells me to go. People ask me all the time, well, why did you only work on my right side? I'm like, well, that's where your body said it needed some love. So that's where I went. There's sometimes where my logical brain, my scientific brain that has all of these anatomy and physiology courses behind it, is just like, well, no, that doesn't make sense. That's not even connected to this area where they're saying they're having pain. I need to focus on where they're having pain. And then the other side of me knows that everything is connected. So in some way, the area where I can feel the restriction is related to where they're having pain through some sort of a domino effect on the tissues. So I sometimes have to block out that logical side and just be like, no, this is what the body is telling me to do. Your body knows you better than I know you, better than my textbooks know you. So I'm going to follow that.
So, do you have an example of a patient transformation story that you could share to kind of illustrate the journey someone might experience in working with you?
Ooh, oh man. Like a physical transformation or an emotional transformation?
Maybe it could be either or, just a story maybe that really stands out for you where you felt like in working with you, you were really able to make a difference for that person and move them from being in a place where they were struggling in some way, be it physically or emotionally. And in working with them, they were able to get to a much better place, be it feeling better physically and or feeling in a better place emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one client who I've seen for quite a while now, sort of in a cyclical sense where it's like, okay, we work on one thing and then they go away and they feel better and they live their life, and then when something else comes up, they come back and they're like, okay, now this is a new layer to maybe an old problem or a completely new problem. So this person originally came to me because of debilitating back pain. And so we went through a lot of different layers of what this back pain could have been caused by. And typically, emotionally and energetically, particularly lower back and hips, will represent structure and stability. So when you have not really lived a life that feels stable, whether it be emotionally or financially, or even in the case of like maybe divorced parents or kind of a tumultuous household, your body will try to create structure and stability for you where you don't feel that you have that. So turns out this person had quite a traumatic childhood. And it's funny because a lot of people don't even realize the trauma that they've been through, because when you're in trauma, that's normal to you. That's you're just like, oh no, that's a totally normal childhood. It's just how my parents acted, whatever. And it's just like, no, that's trauma. So there's the amount of times that I say that in the run of a day is quite significant, because I would say the majority of people don't actually realize the impact of their environment. But this person had quite a traumatic childhood. So, and that trauma had completely impacted how they were living their life as an adult, how they were seeking validation, how they were recognizing stress. So if they, for example, if they experience a significant amount of abandonment, then even in like a corporate job, it would be like, okay, I need to make sure I do everything perfect, because if I don't, then bad things are going to happen, and I need to keep everybody happy. And uh, but people don't realize that's a trauma response. That's your body trying to keep you safe. And through that stress on your body, it creates tension and it creates physical restrictions, and therefore creates pain and illness. So this person, again, lower back pain, we worked a significant amount on somatic release and sort of neural rewiring of the traumatic events from their childhood, and but also worked physically on the organs and connective tissues and fascia that were connected into her hips and lower back. So yeah, now this person comes and we only talk about emotional stuff, because they're just like, I know all this physical stuff is gonna subside as soon as we deal with this stuff. So
Well, and I think that's such a good example of something that you and I have discussed before, and that is how teaching and learning plays a huge role role in the work that you do. So, and it sounds like, especially initially, there's a little bit of that, well, all throughout, but especially initially, an educational piece in helping people understand that mind, body, emotion, mental health connection,
yeah.
especially if they're coming in with lower back pain and all of a sudden you're asking them questions about
How was your childhood though?
how was your childhood? But it's my back. What are you talking about? So there
People are always a
definitely
little
is.
surprised when I ask
Yeah,
them.
exactly. And so I'm sure it must raise some questions and require some teaching and education to kind of come to that common understanding of this journey that you're going to take them on. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, how does that education piece really fit in for you, and how do you see yourself engaging in teaching and learning with your patients?
Oh, I truly believe that teaching is like, that is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is the area, this is the field that I'm supposed to be in, but the role as a teacher, that is what I am meant to do. That's something that really fills me with joy. I love doing it. I love seeing that look on people's face when they're just like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And they just have this aha moment. Yeah. That's really where I think that is like my true calling. In fact, so I don't know that we've ever talked about this before, but I am actually a licensed medicine woman. I took
I
a
did
course,
not know
went
that.
in Hawaii with a shaman, and we did our animal medicine whole spread. And my shaman name is actually Teacher Transforming Swan. And so, like, it's in me. Is being a teacher is part of who I am. And yeah, so ultimately, it sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but ultimately that's the direction where I really want my whole business to go. Is I will never stop seeing people in person, but I want it to be this sounds silly, but I want you not to have to come see me. I want to provide everyone across the world in with enough information where you can actually help heal yourself, because I think that if you understand that level of interconnectivity, that like vastness of everything is connected and how things are connected, then instead of saying like, oh, I have this back pain and I need to go to chiro 3 times a week and I need to go to physio and I need to take these drugs and I need to go for these shots, you can be like, okay, I have this lower back pain. I know because I took Jillian's course that lower back pain will often represent structure and stability. So, where do I feel emotionally like I'm lacking structure and stability right now? And how can I find that safety within myself when the outside world is, let's face it, nonsense? And then you can help to relieve that stress on your body and help to relieve that pain without having to do the chiro 3 times a week and taking all the drugs and doing all the shots and everything. So it sounds silly, but my ultimate goal is to have people not come see me. And then once you figure out all, obviously there's always going to be layers to like, okay, I've done all that I can do for myself. Now I need a little bit of support. Now I need a little bit of guidance. Then you come to see me. Like I said, I'll never stop seeing people in my office in person or via distance, but I want you to feel empowered to be able to help yourself and to really realize the power and control that you have over your own health and well-being.
That makes sense. You want to work yourself out of a job and be there to, well,
Kind
be
of.
there to provide the guidance.
I
No, I
still
know what
want
you're
a
saying.
job.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I think that's great, though. You're really wanting to empower people to better understand
Mhm.
themselves and to be able to provide some care for their overall health and well-being
Yeah.
themselves without always needing to seek that outside expertise. I think that's so admirable. Teaching
Yeah,
is a huge part of what you do.
it's huge. And I think every single time somebody comes to see me in person, teaching them those pieces of the puzzle, that's a huge part of it. A huge part of it. I would say the majority of the time I spend probably half the appointment with us talking and putting those puzzle pieces together before we even get them on the table. Yeah,
Yeah, people are puzzles.
they are.
They
Being
are.
is a
They are.
puzzle, and there's so many different elements to it that you just need to fit together. But I mean, like I said, I'm always going to be here to help people. Okay, I've done the emotional work. Now I need to fit the physical and emotional together. Because I mean, like, I still need to go see my acupuncturist. I still need to see my osteopath, my energy workers. Like, I still go see all those people because as much as I can, like, sit with my body and recognize where I feel pain and where the pain is coming from, I still need a little bit of help to get it to release sometimes. So I don't want to work myself out of a job, but I want
I'm
to just
teasing.
minimize.
Yeah,
I
no, that
want
makes a lot of sense.
I think the empowered piece is
Yeah,
the important piece. Is I just want people to realize how much they actually can control within themselves, because I think that everybody, and this was also my experience when I worked in traditional healthcare, it's like people just give their power away and just blindly listen to a lot of things. Like I so when you're an X-ray tech, you call the person and you're like, okay, your name is Tiana. And okay, so it says here, so you're having like some ankle trouble. And because I'm about to x-ray your ankle. And the number of people that would be like, not really. Like, oh, okay, so why are you here? Well, my doctor told me to come, so I'm just here. Okay. How about we think about this a little bit? And yeah, so I really want to help people feel more empowered with their own abilities to help themselves, rather than just like, no, this is what my doctors have told me to do, so I'm just gonna do it. I'm not discrediting doctors either. Like there's a lot of really great information out there, but you are still the one that knows you the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then to have that empowerment, then there's a greater tendency for self advocacy and all those
Yeah.
good things that come when we're engaging in things that have to do with our health and wellness. And I think that's so important because we live in such a busy world
Yeah.
with so much going on. And I know sometimes when I ask people how they're doing, or people ask me how I'm doing, I feel like part of the answer is like, I'm busy. Like, I'm good, but I'm so
Always.
busy. Or I'm so
Always.
busy. How are you? Busy. I'm
Yeah.
busy.
I
And
think
we
on
just
some
get,
level that busyness has become sort of like this badge of honor. Like if you're not
yeah.
busy, then maybe you're lazy on in some level. Like,
I know if somebody asked, how are you? Good. Today went for a walk. I laid on the couch. I had a nap. I read a book. Like that would just,
nobody's bragging about
hmm.
that.
No, no, it's like all the things that you did, right? All those
Mhm.
things you checked off your list. And the danger with that, of course, is it can lead us to feeling really burnt out. And like obviously there's so much more to that story. I mean, I'm sure those listening to our conversation are realizing it's not just that. Like there's the layers underneath and all those pieces of the puzzle that are contributing to that. So when we think about busyness and
Mhm.
burnout, what might be a couple things that people aren't thinking about or maybe should be aware of when it comes to causes of burnout?
Oh man. Okay. So I hear a lot that concept of like, no, I love this like hustle inside of me, which is really just another term for anxiety, let's be honest. But I love it. It's like my fuel. It's what helps me get stuff done. What I always tell people is that it's really, really hustle is great. Don't get me wrong. As long as you're hustling towards your highest good, right? Because it's very easy to get stuck in a hustle cycle where you have no real idea what you're hustling for, or maybe it's something that, like, let's say, oh, I'll be happy when I get this promotion, or I'll be happy when I have this job title, or when I make this much money. And that gets you into that I'll be happy when type of mentality. And that's a never ending cycle. And that will not get you the feeling behind it that you're so desperately looking for. Because, and that's what I really want to get across to people, is that it's hustle is great, but as long as you know what you're hustling for, what is the feeling behind that tangible thing? Because if you're looking for respect, or if you're looking for validation, those feelings can happen in multiple different ways, and they can look multiple different ways. But there's only one way to get that promotion, and you're pigeonholing yourself by spending all of your energy hoping that that respect and validation is going to be on the other side of that promotion. And let me tell you, the majority of the time, that is not the case. You will not feel any different when you get that promotion, or when you make that money, or when you whatever it is that you think that you're hustling towards. So it is really important to know what is fueling you, so that you don't flirt with that line of burnout. Because honestly, and there's a whole section on healthy hustle versus havoc hustle is the first lesson in my course from hustle and hurt to healthy and happy. But yeah, this is the whole first section. It's all about understanding that feeling behind it. Like if I'm in my office, I can be in my office working on something that I'm passionate about for 10 hours straight and not feel tired at all. And I'm sure you've been in that same sort of position where, like, when you get those juices flowing and you're in a really good place, you can just keep going. And that's how you know you're in like healthy hustle. You're like, yeah, I'm getting things done, but you're pouring energy into something that is actively feeding you back. If you're pouring energy into a job where you're just working towards that next peg and it's not necessarily something that really feeds your soul, it's more of that optics situation, you're more than likely just pouring all that energy out and it's not coming back. And that's when you completely burn out. That's when you get sick. That's another way your body tries to tell you, hey, you are out of alignment here.
Yeah,
There's a
you hit the
really, really
wall.
beautiful, yeah. There's a really beautiful quote by Barbara Brennan. She wrote a book that's called Hands of Light, and where she talks about that discomfort is really just your body's way of letting you know where you're out of alignment with your body, but also with your life, and you're out of alignment with your true self. And I just think that's so beautiful, because I really do think that any kind of pain and discomfort, it's not your body working against you. It's your body trying to get your attention. It's your body trying to be like, hey, over here, pay attention to me, please. We're not on a good path. So
No,
I
that
think that
makes
there's
a lot of
always
sense.
messages, and we just haven't been taught how to listen.
Well, I know that I learned so much working with you on your online course. So you mentioned Hustle and Hurt to Healthy and Happy, and also an online group program called Messages from Your Body to Your Soul. And
That
I
one's not
know that,
bad.
okay. And I know in working through both of those and in developing them, I learned so much from you. So yes, you are an incredible teacher, and it was so enjoyable and inspiring to work with you and to learn something new, many new things from you every time we connected. So I would love to learn from you what your experience was like creating these learning experiences and what led you to want to do that in the first place.
Well, I love to learn myself, which is why I've taken so many different avenues and taken so many different courses, because I just think the whole thing is fascinating. So I've got a lot of information in my brain. And it is a true testament to you that you could take all of my, but this is all the things that I know, and organize it all in such a beautiful fashion. I think that working with you was one of the biggest steps towards creating the products that I have, because organizing your thoughts is no easy feat. Let me tell you what. But yeah, I think that it's like what we talked about before, the concept of teaching and the concept of learning, because I think you have to learn in order to be a good teacher. But the concept of teaching is just sort of something that I've always wanted to do. It is the path that I really think that I was meant for. So I kind of always knew it was going to be a part of what I was doing. Even when I was an X-ray tech, my goal was to be a clinical instructor. And then I was just like, okay, I'm not going to be an X-ray tech anymore. So maybe I'm going to get a job with an osteopath school, and I'm going to teach people how to do what I do. And then my vision for my life and for my future has evolved many times, but it has always involved teaching. So I've just always known that that's going to be a part of what I do.
Well, and I had also the immense privilege to check out your incredible master class that you did recently. And you are such an incredible teacher. So if there are opportunities for those listening to take advantage of learning with Jillian, I would jump on it because you will learn so much, be so inspired, and Jillian, you have such a natural ability to teach. Not
Thank
everybody
you.
has that. So I highly recommend checking out Jillian and the learning opportunities that she has to offer.
And there's more to come.
So, and more to come. Stay tuned. Stay
Yeah,
tuned.
that's the way my brain works. I'm just always like, how can I turn that into a course? How can I let more people know this information? Everybody needs to know this.
Everybody needs to know. Yeah. And it's tapping into all those different ways that align with people and how they like to learn and explore and grow. So you're doing a great job. Such a great job.
Thank you.
And I know you get a lot of questions. You are most welcome. And I asked you prior to us chatting to share with me some of your FAQs, your most frequently asked questions. And I was wondering if you would mind sharing your answers to a couple of them.
Sure, I don't remember what I
Okay.
said.
I know.
I filled that form
Da. So one question was, how does osteopathy work differently than physio or chiropractor?
Okay, so physio and chiro are purely hands-on, purely looking at the physical side of imbalance and pain. So, and they're working with joint alignment, muscles and fascia, and the health of those tissues. What I do is I work with the interconnectivity of all of the body systems, including the viscera, so the organ specific fascia, which some physios and chiros do have that manipulation training, which is amazing. Not a lot of them do. I haven't found a ton, but if you can find a physio or chiro that has that kind of manipulation, it's just like one extra level of important attention that your body needs, because that organ specific fascia, those are connective tissues and ligaments that get tight just this exact same way all of the connective tissues around your muscles get tight, right? Like they still need some love and attention. But the additional area that I work in is I work with that intuitive piece and I work with that emotional piece. So every different organ, as well as every different joint and every area of the body, has an emotional and energetic representation. So, like I shared before, the lower back and the hips represent structure and stability. For example, the liver and gallbladder are paired organs and they represent usually anger and frustration, but there's also a whole list when you look at both Chinese medicine and osteopathy principles. So, my job is to not only deal with those physical restrictions, but figure out where those physical restrictions came from. Is it something that came from like maybe a previous car accident, or maybe you played a contact sport? Or is it a restriction that's caused by those unexpressed emotions, those unresolved traumas, things that have happened throughout your life that are telling your body that it needs to hold itself in tension? So that's the, I would say, the main difference between a purely physical modality and one such as myself that incorporates that mental health aspect into it.
Next question
Okay.
is, Jillian, how can you tell where my pain is coming from?
That's a great one. I get that one all the time. So what I do is I have a technique that I use that's like a whole body assessment. I get someone to lay on the table here and I hold their feet. And basically, me holding someone's feet is the equivalent of you and me on either side of the room holding either end of a rubber band. Okay. If you had your eyes closed, you would still be able to tell if I was holding the end of the rubber band, if I was holding the middle of the rubber band, or if I maybe moved from side to side, you would feel the changes in that tension. So, you with your eyes closed being me standing at the feet, and me moving around being the restriction within somebody's body. So, I can feel based on a full body assessment, okay, where where is the body pulling me? Where can I feel that tension or restriction? And that's where I start. That's where I go. I start with maybe some physical manipulations, whether it's fascia or viscera or whatever it is, and then move into those menus that I was talking about before. Well, is this only physical, or is there an emotional component? Is there a mental component, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So it's kind of a dialogue between myself and the person's body. And people are always saying, yeah, but we're not talking. How are you having a dialogue with me? It's like, no, I'm not talking to you. I'm having a dialogue with your body.
That's different. It's
That's
different.
different.
Yes.
Yes. Your body is telling me where to go.
And I can see how that might take a little while for people to sort of wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
Thus, the teaching education part that goes
Yes.
along with what you do. So, obviously, teaching is incredibly important to you. And I imagine you must have had a teacher that really stands out for you. So, I wonder if you might share who maybe a special or most special teacher has been for you and why that person is so important to you.
Oh, man. I've had a couple. I had one teacher when I was in x-ray school, and I really relate to this woman a significant amount because they shared that like next level of excitement about like, let's learn about this, like new information about the body. Oh my God, it's so fascinating. So everything was super exciting, and it was, I really saw a lot of myself in her, and a lot of that, like, oh, okay, this is as exciting as I think that it is. I'm not a big weirdo for being jazzed up about how fascinating the human body is. Okay, cool, 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 cool.
That passion and excitement is really so contagious. Have you ever sat in or been a part of a class where there just isn't that? Where
Yes.
the teacher, yes, the opposite. Yes, it's so hard
It's
to stay
awkward.
motivated. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
Especially
hard.
when it's the teacher that is not the engaged one, that is really tough. That is really tough because it's like, well, if you don't even want to be here, I definitely don't want to be here.
It's interesting. Well, now it's October when we're recording this, but back in September, we had meet the teacher at our kids' schools. And one of the teachers for one of the subjects, when they were talking about the subject, they were saying how rigorous it was. It is going to be so rigorous, and it's important that everybody like really works hard, but we do have fun in this class. And I thought, do you? Like, I wanted to put my hand up and ask, can you give me an example of how you have fun in this class? Because it's not
Fun.
feeling like there's a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll keep it pretty generic. But yeah, I was thinking, I'm not even taking this class and I feel
Yeah.
stressed. So yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, like,
yeah,
I grew up watching Magic School Bus, right? Like Miss Frizzle was, that's what everybody wants as a teacher, right? That's somebody who, like, she was jazzed about every single thing that she taught, and was always talking about how fascinating the world is. And I think if we all just kind of looked at things a little bit more like that, then might make life more exciting.
much more exciting. It can be rigorous, but it's got to be a little fun
It
and
doesn't
exciting
have to
too.
be, it can be rigorous, but it doesn't have to be stressful, right? Like,
Right.
those are
Yes.
very different things.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Now, you've had quite the journey, Jillian,
Yeah.
and I'd love to know if there's something that really stands out for you that you are most proud of.
Oh, wow. That is a question. I think the thing that I am most proud of was the gut that it took to quit my quote unquote stable job as an x-ray tech. I had a steady paycheck every 2 weeks that was coming in. I had benefits, I had vacation time, and I quit my job, and I sold like I said, sold my house and sold everything that I owned, packed up what I could fit in my car, and moved provinces. And I think that that is one of the things that I am most proud of, because that was that first initial step towards building the life of my dreams. And I did what I thought was just the normal, natural route to get to where I wanted to go. And I quickly learned that that was not a fulfilling path for me. So I made the decision that that's not how I wanted to live my life. I didn't want to just roll over and decide, oh, well, this is the life that I chose, so I'm going to just be in it. I wanted to make big changes, and I wanted to have an impact on people's lives, and I truly believe that I'm doing that now.
And taking that first step, that was a big step.
Yeah, it was
That was a big
terrifying.
step to take. Yeah, it's not just taking that small, that's a big, big step.
A
Something
big
you
step.
definitely should be so proud of.
Yeah.
That's a lot of change all at once. All at once.
I actually quit my job before I had my acceptance letter from osteo school. Yeah,
You were all
I
in.
and I had gotten to this point where, so I had actually, you know what, the quote that I mentioned before about how pain and discomfort is just your body telling you that you're out of alignment with your true self. And I had been making myself sick. I was having panic attacks in the parking lot before going into my job. I was not well. I had pains everywhere. I had digestive issues. There was like a whole big thing. And I had made this decision that I was going to make these changes. And I got to the point where I was just like, I can't wait anymore. I can't wait anymore. I know I can't keep doing this. So even if I have to move back home, even if I have to work at McDonald's, I know I can't do this anymore. So I need to just figure everything out after the fact. It was the complete definition of the take the step and the stairway will appear, because I got home that day after handing in my letter of resignation. I felt a million pounds lighter, and my acceptance letter was in the mail that day.
Amazing.
So yeah, the
Amazing.
stairway appeared, thank God, but I just knew that I couldn't do
Yeah.
what I was doing
Yeah.
and
Well,
not end up in the hospital. I was making myself sick. So when I say that
yeah.
that's where my own healing journey began, that's when I realized how much your stress levels and your emotions and getting stuck in that hustle culture, that impacts your physical health in a much bigger way than any of us fully realize. But that was the definite turning point for me.
And look where you are now.
And look at me.
I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Oh, geez. Okay.
What is something you would love to learn about or something that you would love to learn to do?
Oh, there's so many things. I am the epitome of a lifelong learner, so I want to know everything. Like, I've taken a dissection course before. It sounds gruesome, but like it's incredibly fascinating, and I would love to do that again, but to do it more in depth. I would love to learn more about herbs. Oh, that's a big one. Like, and maybe that's in my future, to take a course in herbalism or herbology. I'm not entirely sure what the right word is for it, but the medicinal properties of herbs, because I have a really good friend who's a herbalist, and she is brilliant, and I just think that there's so many natural remedies for things that we just have no idea. And so I'd love to learn more about that.
What is a place at the top of your travel bucket list?
Again, so many places. Because like the differences in cultures, and it's another big fascination of mine. So I've traveled a lot already. I've traveled through Europe. I've traveled through Southeast Asia. I've been to Haiti. I've been all across Canada and the US. I'd love to do some South America, like Nicaragua or Costa Rica, and Greece is another one that's always been up at the top. some Eastern European and South American, I think.
What is a book, podcast, movie, or TV show that you've enjoyed recently?
Ooh, okay. So a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are very business focused. So there's one that is called The Social Snippet. There's a woman out of Toronto that runs it, and she's talking about networking and using social media to your advantage as a businesswoman. So if you're a businesswoman, that's a great one to listen to and to follow, particularly if you have hangups about social media. A really great book that I recently read was called Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima. She was the founder of It Cosmetics, and she, like, this fairy tale story of, or I don't know if this is really a fairy tale, but where she developed these cosmetics in her living room, and she made $0 for the first, I think, like 4 years of her company, and she never ever took no for an answer. She just kept going and kept going and kept reapplying for, like, to be on the shopping channel, or to, like, to have other brands like pick her up as a little sister company, things like that. She eventually, somebody just got tired of listening to her, and she eventually got herself on the home shopping channel. And I listened to her speak a couple of years ago, and that's how I got her book. And she's just this fascinating woman. She ended up, on that first episode of being on the home shopping channel, she completely sold out of all of her product, because her foundation is specifically for people with skin issues. And so she has rosacea on her face, and she used to be a news anchor, and her cosmetics would always like cake and sink into the lines of her rosacea. And she's like, I got in trouble so many times on air because they're like, there's something on your face. Anyways, fast forward a couple more years, she ended up selling her business to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion. Yeah. And she
Wow.
said the biggest takeaway when I listened to her speak was, she's like, I kept hearing no, but I always had this inner knowing that, like, this is a thing. This is something that is really important to me, and this is something that needs to be out in the world. And she was advocating for women of all ages, of all skin types. And, like, even when she was on the home shopping channel, she wanted to demonstrate her makeup on women who were of all ages and had all different skin types. And the producers were just like, this is career suicide. Like, no, you need to use this model who has perfect skin so that everything looks good. And she was like, no, she had a very clear vision of what she wanted her business and what she wanted her life to look like. And she just stayed true to that inner knowing. And one of the things that she said was, she's like, authenticity doesn't guarantee success, but inauthenticity guarantees failure. So as long as you're authentic to yourself, you're going to get somewhere.
That's a good message. I love
Yeah.
that. So maybe it's her, but maybe someone else. If you could sit down and have a conversation with someone that you would love to learn from, who would it be and why?
That one's super easy. It's Gabor Mate. And I don't know if everybody listening here knows who Gabor Mate is, but so the podcast and the book that I was talking about, those are more for, like, women in business. But Gabor Mate he's a medical doctor, but he is one of the, I'm going to say, like, founding fathers of how stress and trauma creates physical issues, pain and illness. And he's just absolutely fascinating to talk to, and I would love to sit down and pick his brain and hear about his experiences. Mm-hmm. He's written a
Well,
couple
and
of books too,
maybe.
which I highly, highly
Okay.
recommend.
Okay. I will have a look for those and we can include those in the show notes too,
Yeah.
because it sounds very intriguing. And sort of the last question that I wanted to ask you, and this theme topic has come up through our conversation, but just the the idea that education plays such a big part of our lives in how we work and do business and play and explore and build relationships with people. So I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom to inspire and empower people in their own teaching and learning journeys.
I think, as far as in their own teaching and learning journeys, when you're wanting to learn more about, like in my realm anyways, when you're wanting to learn more about yourself and why am I responding the way that I'm responding? Why is my body reacting the way that it's reacting? I think it sounds so simple, but the best place to start and the easiest step to take is to just pay attention. Pay attention to the thoughts that are going on inside your head, the stories that you're telling yourself. Whose voice is it that is telling you that you can't do X, Y, and Z? And that'll tell you a lot about what experiences throughout, and generally comes from childhood, but what experiences are shaping your reactions to things today, and why it's impacting your body in a certain way.
I think that's great wisdom to wrap up our conversation. And Jillian, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your story and all your wisdom with us today. So, where would be the best places for people to find you if they'd like to learn more about you and all the things that you're up to?
Instagram is a great place to get more information about all the things that I'm up to, and I post fairly regularly, so it's a pretty real time representation of what's going on in my life. To get more information about my background, my story, to get more information about the work that I do, Instagram is still a great place, but my website also has a pretty in-depth look at, like, what is osteopathy, what do I do, who am I, and how do I work. Mm-hmm.
So, and your website, is it right? It's jdmanualosteopath.com.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your Instagram handle?
It's Jillian Inglis. So there's a little
Okay.
bit of a confusion because it's JD Manual Osteopath, but I was recently married, so my last name has changed. But you can also type in JI Manual Osteopath, and it'll take you to the same place.
Well, that works really well.
Yeah.
It's great. Makes it nice and easy. I want to
Yeah.
thank you so much, Jillian, for joining me today. It was great to chat with you and to learn from you.
Thank you so much, Tiana. I loved being here.